Last week's episode of Shogun ended with Toranaga finally declaring it was time for Crimson Sky. That is war. The FX show has been teasing from the get-go that Toranaga is playing a dangerous game with the other regions, one that will either end in his death and those of all of our favorite protagonists, or with Toranaga achieving the ultimate glory, becoming Shogun. The one catch to Toranaga's plan. In order to win, he's got to win the support of his half-brother Seiki Nobutatsu. John Blackthorne has been teetering on the edge of a knife since arriving in Japan, but in episode 7 of Shogun, his situation has become much more precarious. Blackthorne struggles to communicate with the people of Japan without the help of his interpreter, arguably the show's best character, Mariko. In episode 7, this is further complicated by Yabushige, who is consistently exasperated by Lord Toranaga's predicament. Yabushige takes this out on Blackthorne, who cannot understand what he's saying. To communicate this further, Yabushige taunts Blackthorne and makes him pick up the samurai sword he carries, though he has no training in it. Blackthorne holds the esteemed position of Toranaga's Hatamoto, even while no one else trusts him. We reasoned that Operation Crimson Sky had to be close behind after Toranaga's stirring call to arms closed the preceding Shogun episode. As expected, a stick of time begins with the aftermath of what appeared to be a highly violent conflict. Fans of the show's unapologetic depiction of feudal violence will undoubtedly like this graphic sequence, which features numerous beaten bodies and a close-up beheading. However, you might have been a little disappointed when a man yells, "The war is over," as he runs across the battlefield. That sure was quick. Furthermore, Toranaga has triumphed. We start to feel as though we've missed something monumental, but then on-screen lettering informs us that we've been duped, and that what we're seeing is actually the devastation caused by Toranaga's first fight, which took place 46 years ago. The youthful fighter with a fresh face accepts the surrender of his opponent and helps him with his gory seppuku. Even though we've been seeing Toranaga's political ploys since the premiere episode of Shogun, it's possible that no moment has revealed more about his personality than this one. Fire formed this man's warrior instincts. He won his first battle before he pampered his first girl, and he had never known a life in which the prospect of violent death was not a constant in his existence. We can therefore presume that Toranaga's attempt to patch things up with his long-lost brother is not the consequence of unresolved animosity stemming from the day they brought the same dish to the family potluck. However, some things in family life never change, and Toranaga and Lord Seiki decide to get over it and go on after exchanging a few light-hearted jabs. That's what we're told anyway. Following up with Mariko, it becomes apparent that Toranaga remains unimpressed with his mongrel half-brother, and he employs the same strategy to win him over as he employed with Blackthorne, elite prostitutes. Speaking of gifts, accolades, and allies, it makes sense that the Anjin would be interested in learning more about his future role in the Crimson Sky scheme. Blackthorne isn't surprised when Toranaga refuses to provide information because he's never been one to advertise his plans on a billboard. But the interaction nonetheless adds to the growing tension between these uneasy allies. Jin and Kiku are more powerful than they would first appear to be, as last week's episode demonstrated, and pillowing is never limited to only pillowing on Shogun. The prickly Omi is annoyed that Seiki is taking up so much of Kiku's time, but he focuses his ire on Blackthorne instead, accusing him of sullying Gin's tea business. As usual, Jin is unfazed and takes advantage of the situation by implying that Kiku is in love with someone else. After that, our attention is drawn to Fuji, another strong developed female character in this series. Here, a character who on a worse show may have been reduced to little more than a traumatized survivor is allowed the space to develop and experience grief. Fuji yearns to go to the afterlife once more after being shown her husband and son's remains. But we are aware of her tenacity, cunning, and temerity, so she's not just a forlorn widow. Toranaga, Blackthorne, and Mariko receive the most attention from Shogun, but Fuji is just as important a character since she combines all of their best qualities and offers the most obvious thematic connection between their stories. When Hiramatsu urges her to keep fighting for triumph, Fuji's avalanche of contradictory feelings serves as a reminder that although she possesses Mariko's understanding of the pointlessness of it all, she also possesses Blackthorne's bravery and Toranaga's dedication to duty. Once further demonstrating that drunken visiting relatives have been acting rudely and publicly from the beginning of time, Seiki downs the sake and publicly insults Toranaga in a way that probably would have resulted in someone else's death. Then he commits a treachery that makes a tale of incontinence in childhood seem, well, like childish stuff. Although Seiki gave political justifications for betraying his brother and nephew to the Council of Regents, it is obvious that his true motivation was simple sibling rivalry. Of course, Seiki is hardly the only one whose loyalty is in doubt. From the beginning, Ibushige has been balancing his positions, and the delivery of his general's head in a dumpling steamer serves as a reminder of just how high the stakes have gotten. Jin utilizes her stick of time with Toranaga to convey her vision of a better future in which courtesans are unionized and allowed to work together in a centralized brothel area, showcasing her intelligence and entrepreneurial desire once again. Life is a sword, really, only for those with the ability to use it. But this isn't just any business idea. Jin is appealing for fundamental human rights and dignity, and for a split second, it appears that Toranaga may give her suggestion some thought as a result of his growing realization of his own death and the rate at which his incense stick is burning out. However, he is too close to despair to take his subjects' issues into account. Luckily, Jin has demonstrated in her little screen time that she is the most stylish character on the program and has a level of cunning that Toranaga and his generals can only envy. She points out to Toranaga their shared struggles and goals, and suggests that he might have allowed Seiki to bring his army inside the community. Several characters hold the Anjin responsible for their country's current problems, despite the fact that the conflict among the Council of Regents existed before Blackthorne's ship arrived. Among them is Ibushige, who lets out his resentment in a violent training session that Buntaro watches with great fascination. Buntaro then reminds us that he also doesn't like Blackthorne by almost beheading the British man. Later in the episode, when Buntaro begs Toranaga for permission to remove the Anjin's head for the crime of using said cranium to ogle Mareko, things come to a head, pun intended. The reason for his denial is that doing so would also implicate Mareko. Yet, it appears that Toranaga is also wary of the translator's allegiance, as Mareko becomes the second character in the episode to ask for permission to end her own life. Things once again take a very bad turn. The episode's general feeling of doom is enhanced by the unending rain and fog, and Toranaga, like many of his subjects, succumbs to despondency and turns himself into his brother. No one has the right to destroy the realm, even in the presence of evil. Red Sky was an error. Although Nagakato's botched effort to kill Seiki and his own humiliating demise are certain to be among the season's most contentious story points, they successfully unite the episode's main themes. We are reminded that significant events often take place in the shadows of the Willow world, that violence and sex make for odd bedfellows, which echoes Nagakato's previous observations about the parallels between war and pillowing, and that fate may be both sad and absurd. We experience the same level of misery as Toranaga and his oppressed vassals when the scene fades to black for a music-free final title sequence. And we are reminded once more that there is no television show that so constantly exhibits such a remarkable mastery of tone. There are still 3 episodes left in this season, but A Stick of Time feels almost like a pre-finale as Toranaga makes his will. Luckily, he doesn't forget Jin and appears to accept his fate. This kind of episode prepares the audience for the big fight that is about to happen. The title alludes to both the transient aspect of human existence and the incense that was used to mark time in feudal Japan's brothels. This hour of Shogun shows a pivotal point between significant occurrences, when time momentarily stops and allows for reflection before everything shifts irrevocably. Even though we are aware that there is still a great deal of tale to be told, A Stick of Time gave us the impression that everything was lost.